From American Falls to Milan, we've got the biggest stories in District 5 covered. This is the Southeast Idaho Prepcast with Jordan Kay.
That's right. It's another edition of the Southeast Idaho Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com. I'm Brandon Bainey, and joined as always from the Idaho State Journal in Pocatello, Jordan Kay. Jordan, what's going on?
Not much, just hanging in there. How about you?
Yeah, about the same. Hey, you had your first ISU football game of the season on Saturday. What was that like?
It was interesting. I mean, it wasn't a great crowd, 4,000 people. They didn't look great, but there's still plenty of time in the season, so we'll see. I don't know, though. The Big Sky looked pretty good all around, so that's a good conference. Maybe they can get buoyed up by everyone else's great performances. So we'll see. A lot of weeks left.
Yeah, it was an awesome week for the Big Sky Conference. As a Missoula, Montana native, I got to mention those Montana Grizzlies, right? Knocking off big. Washington.
That was big.
How are they ranked 20th in the country?
Yeah. When I saw that win, I was like, wait, Washington was 20th? Like, no way. Like, they weren't very good last year. I didn't understand that, but hey, so you're still beating a ranked FBS team, so you can throw the parade and all that.
Yeah, and Eastern Washington got a win over an FBS school, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was. There was 3 Big Sky teams that won over FBS teams. Montana State almost beat Wyoming, and Weber State actually hung tough with Utah as well. So
no, I thought Utah didn't look very good, but Weber's a good team though, so that's a hard one to gauge.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the kind of analysis you're going to get every week here on the Big Sky Conference Football Prepcast. No, I'm just kidding. It's the District 5 Prepcast here at IdahoSports.com. We do always like to start with what's going on with Jordan at the Idaho State Journal, though. And that was the big story, I think, last week for you was the ISU's first football game of 2021. So
it was actually the first time I'd seen, like an ISU game in Holt ever, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, we talked about how you had your first high school game inside Holt Arena back when Highland played Rocky Mountain in week 0, and you said that kind of felt odd.
Just too big. Like there's not enough people to fill it, so it just feels empty and dead. And I don't know. I just would rather have someone fill 1,000-seat stadium than have 1,500 people jammed in a 13,000-seat stadium. But that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. Did it feel any different for ISU with more fans in there, or still kind of cavernous and
felt depressing?
Yeah. We'll get there. I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? And
that's true.
Started at the bottom. Now we hear.
Easy dream.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be talking about Holt Arena plenty because there's going to be a couple of games in Holt Arena this week, but let's recap the week that was in high school football in District 5. Jordan, you were at the West Side Snake River game on Friday night. West Side, I was actually surprised. Snake River was coming off that big win over Kimberly. West Side was in a dogfight with Firth, and I thought the game would be close, but Pirates end up shutting out the Panthers 27-0.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we learned from that is I was talking to a lot of the West Side coaches. Firth is really good. The West Side coaches were like, this is not the same Firth team that we played in the state championship game. They were incredible. They were so physical on the lines. Like, they're going to be really tough to beat. And the other thing, like, Kimberly dropped to 0-2. So, as much as that Snake River win looked really good week 1, it's tough to say if it's really as impressive now. But, I think Snake River they just had trouble executing on offense. West Side is just so long, so physical up front. And then Bryler Shertliff, who's, the renaissance man of the Pirates, is unreal. The dude was I think he had to have been the only person in the state to be a first-team all-state selection at 3 positions. He wanted it receiver, defensive back, and kicker. Against Snake River on Friday, he had 2 interceptions that, it's tough to tell exactly, how impressive they were because Snake River had to throw the ball a ton, but he was coming out of nowhere on some of them and had a ton of space to make catches. Then I think he only had 3 catches as a receiver. One of them, though, was a 30-yard touchdown in which he did a double move, like catches the ball one-handed with a guy pulling on his shoulder. I mean, everyone in the stadium seemed to think that it was incomplete. They were just yelling for the pass interference call. Ends up being an incredible touchdown. And so, he was fantastic. And then it's just so fun to watch the West Side, running backs go at it. It's always led by Cage Brokens, but, you got quarterback Blaze Brown and a couple other guys just really hitting the holes hard. And so they're just a tough team to beat. And I think it's I think you have to say that they're the favorites still to go in 2A. But, I think after talking with them, the rematch against Firth, possibly in the playoffs or the championship or whatever, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's why I love the West Side offense so much. Is because it is that wing T system where they run the ball a ton, right? But when they do go back to pass, it's almost like the defense is lulled to sleep. Well, they're not going to throw the ball, but when they do, they've got such a tremendous playmaker out there in Bryler Shertliff. I think that actually helps Bryler a little bit as well. The defenses maybe aren't quite ready for it when they do decide to go up top to him.
Yeah, and they right now don't need to get him the ball 10 times a game, but I think later on, they know if close games come or if they're in the playoffs or whatever, they always have the option of the rushing attack's not working, we can always throw a screen pass. We can always throw a short slant to Bryler and he can make things happen, which makes their offense just so much more dynamic.
Yeah, you had an excellent write-up about that West Side Snake River game at the Idaho State Journal. Obviously, the hard copy in the paper, but also online at IdahoStateJournal.com. I think the thing I was most surprised to learn from reading your recap was, West Side's already played a couple of games this year, and I just look at the box score real quick, and I see, Cage Brokens 22-yard touchdown run, Shertliff kick. And I was like, oh yeah, Bryler Shertliff. He was an all-state kicker last year, kicked all their PATs. Well, then I find out from looking at your more detailed box score, it's Easton Shertliff that's kicking the PATs.
Or, I don't know if it's his brother, actually. I never asked.
You got to ask because it could be cousins.
It could be his brother or cousin. Yeah, I always got to figure that out. You'll get it messed up whenever you do. But yeah, it was another Shertliff who was, looked fine from kicking the ball. So yeah, they've got plenty of weapons kicking, which isn't always the case in 2A.
Yeah, that's so it's nice that Bryler can have something off of his plate. So he can focus on offense and defense. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. I think the other eye-opening, it was a nice night for Pocatello. All three schools got wins. And I guess maybe let's start with Century because they got their first win of the season.
Yeah.
And this was after a 2-week layoff after their week 1 opponent Ridgeview had to cancel because of COVID-19 stuff. So Century, you wondered if they'd be a little rusty, but all the scoring was in the first half and they got a safety late in that first half. And that stood up as they beat Bonneville 15-13.
Yeah, no, that was one of I think the quickest games of the week. It was over like 9:00 or way before then. Yeah. What's interesting about Century is last year they were really predicated on their defense. It was, you had guys on the back end like, Jonah Soul and Miles Gifford and, in the middle, just plenty of linebackers and defensive linemen that were just monsters. They lost so many guys last year that you kind of went into 2021 wondering how they were going to replace them. The offense, they lost a ton of receivers, lost some running backs, but, you still got Bruin Fleischman. You still got McKean Rombriel at quarterback. That didn't seem like as big of a drop-off. But the defense carried them in the win over Bonneville. Get Logan Horrocks, the new head coach, his first win. And the interesting thing that stuck out to me is, you got Bruin Fleischman, who's committed to Air Force as a receiver. This big, what is he, 6'3", 6'4", 220 pounds, big target that can go up and probably has a mismatch against any cornerback in the state. And he is a standout at linebacker this week. He's got half dozen tackles, a sack, forced fumble, an interception, and then he scoops up a block punt and takes it into the end zone. I mean, when you can have a dude who contributes that much on both sides of the ball, and then, hey, the offense isn't getting a whole lot done. They only had one offensive touchdown. It was to a sophomore receiver, Jake Rawlings. And when you can have a guy who, like Bruin, who contributes so much and is so versatile on defense, I mean, that's one of the coolest ways to win a game is doing it kind of how people expected you to lose games.
And I think that says a lot about Bruin and also the upbringing he had from his parents. I know that's a story that the ISJ has done in depth in the past when he and Titan were both at Century. They'll do whatever it takes to help the team win, right? Titan was a tight end his senior year, moved to left tackle because that's what he was going to play in college, but also because that's what the team needed. Bruin could easily say, you know what? I'm going to be a tight end in college. I only want to play tight end and enough of this defense stuff. But Coach Horrocks said, hey, look, we really need you on defense. And he was totally okay with that. And they're such great kids and that they're great people. And that's all because of the upbringing that they have there. So one last thing about Century real quick is I think we talked about the low numbers and most nights they are the undermanned team in terms of depth and in terms of varsity playmakers, in terms of new players.
Sure.
But I think we are discovering that Logan Horrocks is a pretty good coach because they almost beat Minico. They did beat Bonneville, and that's despite being shorthanded, so to speak, in both of those games. So
you do not have to question Century's effort level on a night-to-night basis. And I think for a lot of teams across the state, coming off a COVID year, coming off an off season where things are, a little bit, tricky, not exactly back to normal. That's a big question mark. And with Century, it's like, they're going to have low numbers. There might be the underdog most nights, but man, like they're going to work. And that's all as a first year head coach for, Logan, that's a credit to him and really cool to see how many kids have bought in that program.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch as the season goes along. Pocatello traveled over to Twin Falls to play a Bruins team that I think is actually pretty decent. Yeah. And Pokey actually had less total yardage than Twin Falls. Twin Falls outgained Pokey in total yardage, but Pocatello cashed in on 4 takeaways and ended up winning a tight contest by 7. The final score 21-14.
Yeah, Pocatello has played 2 games and they showed they can win in 2 different ways. First game, just a complete blowout. Offense looked unreal. Defense looked unreal. Second game, a little more adversity. Your defense is kind of in a bend, don't break mode where they're allowing some yards, but then all of a sudden they recover. They get turnovers. They make sure the offense has the ball. They make sure they're put in a position to win. First game also, you've got Reichen Echohawk who's running for 130 yards in the first half. All of a sudden, once that performance happened, I was pretty sure every coach in the state is going to look at that, going to see the box score and be like, oh, well, we might need to load the box. We might need to do that. So what does Pocatello do? All of a sudden, they let it air out. Matt Christensen, a wide receiver, had, caught 8 passes, 90 yards, touchdown. Then you've got on defense, Hunter Killian has 13 tackles. He plays tight end. He gets a couple catches. He makes some nice blocks. And Pocatello, early on is showing they have the ability to, win close games, win blowouts, have different ways of, getting a victory. And that's an important thing to see early on.
Yeah, I love the versatility from Pocatello, and they're finally getting some respect in those polls. They're up to number 3 in the media poll. I know you've had them up there all season, Jordan. I've been a little slower to put them up there.
I don't remember where I put them this week. It was either 3rd or 4th. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I think once you go win games in different parts of the states, all of a sudden, other people start taking notice and, voting them higher up.
Yeah, for sure. And then you've got the Highland Rams who – that loss against Rocky Mountain seems so long ago, especially after they go down to Logan and take care of a pretty decent team from Utah, 47-13. This is the Highland Rams we're used to seeing, Jordan.
Yeah, because first 2 games, they won because of their defense. You had Sloan Lamson and Cody Colvin on the defensive line who were just absolute animals. They were harassing the quarterback. They made sure that, no one was really having more than a second to throw. And this game, when offense was the question the first 2 weeks of the season, all of a sudden they're showing like, hey, we've got playmakers. We have the ability to be explosive. You've got Eli Parrish, just this, very versatile running back, almost the complete opposite of what Caleb DiMuzio brought them the last couple of years. He has 216-yard rushing, another 20 through the air, 3 total touchdowns, and one, his biggest, I think it was like an 80-yard touchdown. It was on a screen pass. It was backwards. So technically it's going to count as a run, but that's just showing that their offense has multiple ways to get people the ball, multiple ways to score. Then the cool thing I thought too is, you've got Ian Hershey, who was, all area kicker last year. He goes 4 for 4, hits field goals from 49, 43, 43, 25, hits all 5 extra points, goes 9 of 10 on touchbacks. And he's getting looks that are just kind of crazy for kickers around here. I know he went on a visit to Cal, went on a visit to Oregon State. We'll see if any of those Pac-12 offers come through. Right now, he's got one from Idaho State, but you look at kids around the area who have offers. It goes Bruin, who's got committed to Air Force, and then probably right behind him, it's like Ian Hershey, and so that's kind of a cool development, is seeing how good he's been, and maybe where this season can elevate him to recruiting wise.
Yeah, and I felt really bad about we did our preseason top 10 lists at IdahoSports.com, right? Top 10 offensive linemen to keep an eye on the state, top 10 defensive linemen. Yeah. And I got an email from Coach Hershey at Highland saying, hey, are you going to do one for special teams? I didn't see special teams on your list. And I told him, I said, look, honestly, there's not 10 kickers that I can identify. I said, it's not to disrespect the other kicker, but like Ian Hershey is so far and away the best kicker in the state. And I could, maybe Bryler Shertliff and Lance Hanna from Nampa. But
these guys, no other team is kicking anything above like 35. Rarely. Yeah. I mean, rarely. Or if they are, it's right at the end of the half. They're like, if it goes in, it goes in. They're not expecting it. Like, Highland gets past, the 30, 35, and they're like, well, we got 3 points. Or at least, we're fine taking the field goal. And that's such a huge advantage.
That's going to be a lethal weapon in the playoffs for Highland. And Ian Hershey's name is already all over the record book. And I think there's maybe 1 or 2 records that are still, his name isn't on, and they'll be broken by the time the season's over. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So Preston, man, what about this Preston team? I'll tell you, they're 2-1, Jordan. Both of their wins have come by 2 points total. They had that 7-6 win over Lakeland way back in week 0. And then they defeat Star Valley from Afton, Wyoming last Friday, 28-27, basically a blocked PAT. Yeah. Earlier in the game was the difference. Coach Thorson sent me over the stats from that game. And when you look at it on the surface, Preston didn't play bad. Brecker Knapp was 16 of 26 for 210 yards, a touchdown and a pick. They ran the ball really well. Charles Iverson averaged 6.3 yards a carry. He had 16 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Emery Thorson had 12 carries for 57 yards. So I'm having a hard time figuring out this Preston team. They look good on the surface, and they are 2-1, but it's been 2 really tight wins.
2 tight wins against like teams that we aren't, we don't really know a whole lot about, like, the Lakeland team and then this, Star Valley team from Wyoming. It's tough to gauge exactly where they're at. But the interesting thing about Preston is going into this season, everyone seemed like they had this 4A District 5 peg. It was like Pocatello, they're on the rise. They're going to be first. Century, they lost a lot of guys. They're on the decline. They're going to be third. And then it was just people like almost by default had to pit Preston at number 2. And right now, the Indians are showing, hey, like when games get tight, we're able to pull these out. And that's going to be just such a crucial thing when you start getting to district play. With a 3-team conference, it's not like you've got to really create a whole lot of miracles. You're playing 2 games. You win one of them, all of a sudden, you're right in the mix. You win 2 of them, you've got the district on lock. And so I think getting these early wins, these early tight victories, who knows what that does for Preston's confidence going into district play. And all of a sudden, I think you have to start looking at the Indians as like, okay, this game against Pocatello, I mean, that might decide the conference, and maybe Preston's got a really good shot to win it.
Yeah, I think Preston's going to be right there. They were the first team out of the playoffs last year in the 4A ranks because of the Max Preps ratings, and it's because of the 3-team district. The Great Basin Conference automatically got 3 teams in because they're a 7-team league. And Preston had a better Max Preps rating than both Minico and Twin Falls last year, and in fact, Shelley did as well. So if it was truly the 16 best teams, Shelley and Preston would have been in the playoffs last year, but unfortunately, it's the way it goes with the 3-team district. And
what hurt them too is they the game they played against Century. I mean, just everything that could go wrong went wrong for them. I mean, it was like a 40-point blowout. There was just pick six after pick six, 80-yard touchdowns by Century, and it was just like, not exactly the way that you want to end a season. And so that kind of, I guess, hurt my impression of them and other people around the area of like, who is this Preston team? And early on, they're showing that might have been an anomaly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about the remaining games I want to kind of highlight.
Yeah.
I would say are well, and let's talk about Marsh Valley real quick. I feel like we haven't talked about them too much yet this year. They shut out Teton 36-0, and they're 1-1 now, and they look strong. I mean, with Snake River not following up that big win the way I thought they would, and Marsh Valley looking strong, I think we're back to a coin flip in that district.
100%. And this week, Marsh Valley has one of the toughest tests on their schedule. I know they're a team that plays 3 state champions remaining. They already, against Beaver from Utah, who is the 2A state champion over there, they looked fantastic. I mean, they went for a 2-point conversion late in the game that could have won it, didn't get it, but, that's how close that game was. River Salem, they play a little later in the year. They haven't looked very good this season. And now you got Westside, who's looked fantastic, but all of a sudden this is going to be the biggest litmus test for this Marsh Valley team. What's been so interesting about the Eagles for me is, when we talked to, Coach Armstrong early in the year, his philosophy on, offense is, we're just going to be smash mouth football team. We think that this is a pretty easy game. It's, move your defender from point A to point B, move them backwards. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to be a, hard-nosed physical team. And early on, what's been so fun to watch is how big of an impact Peyton Howe has had in the passing game. The first game against Beaver, I mean, he is really the reason they got in that game. Quarterback Hunter Roche late in the game is 30 seconds left, throws the ball over the middle. He catches it in double coverage, shoots out 700 guys, sprints to the end zone, gives them a chance. On Friday, he had a pick 6 on defense, a 75-yard punt return for a touchdown. He scores a receiving touchdown, and then on his only rush of the game, scores from 54 yards out. I mean, when you talk about versatility, he tried to find every way you can want to score. And I've seen how good of an athlete he is watching him in basketball, watching him in baseball. I had not seen him play football, and wow, he is making an impact. I know he's got some offers from some schools, and man, with the way he's playing, the highlights he's racking up, that's only going to, boost up in the next couple of weeks.
It's a special group of athletes at Marsh Valley, right? They've won a state baseball title. They've won a state basketball title. Yeah. Football is the only thing left they got to check off that list. So
yeah, for real.
It'll be fun to watch them. Okay. Last couple teams I want to talk about here. There were 3 teams that came up short, but I thought actually had a lot to be encouraged by in the losses. You had Bear Lake travel to play Jackson Hole, and they lost 20-8. Now, for comparison, Bear Lake is a 2A program. Jackson Hole would be like a 4A program in Idaho. In fact, Pocatello is going to play Jackson Hole. And so for Bear Lake to punch 2 levels above and only lose 20-8, I thought was actually really encouraging.
No, that I think they've looked really good this season, especially, you lose Owen Tusher, who's just gunslinging quarterback, and you're not exactly sure what Bear Lake's going to look like. All of a sudden they come out early on and have looked extremely impressive. So, you want to say that the 2A race was between, Aberdeen and Westside, and it's Bear Lake might give both of them a run for their money when they play.
Yeah. Speaking of Aberdeen, they traveled to play Declo, which was a 2A semifinalist from a year ago, and fell 37-20. But I thought for Aberdeen, they had a lot to be encouraged by because Declo pretty routinely puts up 35 to 40 points, and they hung tough for a little bit in that matchup.
Yeah, the only thing was, their offense did not look like it did against American Falls. Cale Adamson, who looked like just a monster against that Beavers defense, didn't have his best night. Brody Beck was fantastic again from under center, but that 2-headed monster, I think they can get back on track though this week.
Yeah, Declo a little more disciplined and a little more veteran savvy than that really young American Falls team. And then I thought North Gem, they're playing the 1A D2 juggernaut Cary. And if you just look at the final score, 54-34, you'd say, well, they lost by 20. But not a lot of teams put up 30-plus points on Cary. That just doesn't happen a lot. And so, and especially when we looked at the stats, Jordan, I think North Gem really had a lot to be pleased by.
Yeah, because I think they got moved down in the rankings, or less people voted. I was like, they're not supposed to beat this team. This is the best team in the state. For them to hang that tough, I thought was impressive. Behind a center like Ransom Cooper, they rushed for over 500 yards. Bridger Hatch, who's one of the most fun guys to watch, had over 300 yards, a couple touchdowns. I mean, they look good. If one thing, it's just going to come down to their defense. They don't have Logan Corder at linebacker. he was an all-state guy. And so now it's, how many points can their offense score? And some nights it's going to need to be about 40 plus.
Yeah, and I think the other big key for North Gem is going to be trying to find at least a little bit of balance. They only threw one pass in the game. They were 0 for 1 passing. You have to – it's almost like a West Side, right? You don't have to throw it 20 times. You can throw it 6 to 7 times, but you got to make it count to keep the defense honest. Otherwise, they're just going to key on that rush game. So
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And then the final teams I wanted to highlight, Malad had a nice shutout victory, 30-0 over Ryrie's a program that's struggling, to put it nicely. But Malad 1-1, first win for new head coach Lucas Thorne. So congrats there. And then, hey, let's give the Rocklin Bulldogs some love, Jordan. I'll admit, Rocklin wasn't super high on my radar coming into the season because I was more focused on North Gem and Water Springs. And Rocklin is 2-0. They're 5th in the media poll this week. How about the Bulldogs?
Yeah, no, that was wait, are they 5th? I didn't think they made it.
Either maybe it was the coaches poll. I just put up the coaches poll today as well. Let me double check.
Yeah. No, their offense is fantastic. I remember we're watching their basketball team. You knew they had athletes. Like Teague Matthews had like over 150 yards receiving, a couple touchdowns. Gavin Perman, for a 1A D2 school, most of these teams just rush the ball like crazy. Not Rocklin. I mean, Gavin Perman, their quarterback, had 331 yards passing, 62% completion, 5 touchdowns. And then you've got a defense, who is getting contributions from all over the place. They've got a sophomore linebacker, Cody Woodworth, who had 18 tackles, 4 sacks, and snatched an interception. And so they're showing that they have so many different ways to beat you.
Yeah, Rocklin 5th in the media poll, Jordan. They were
really
2-0. Yeah, they had a big win over Hanson, 54-22, and they got some young guys too. Rocklin might be good for a couple of years here. So
yeah, no, there's not many. When you look at their playmakers every week, it's a lot of like sophomores and juniors. So that's such a good thing going forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's quickly kind of preview what's coming up here this week/weekend. Well, you've got Thursday night football starting off, the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who cares about that? We've got Thursday night football here in District 5, Jordan.
Yes, we do. This is going to be, one of those things when I got to Pocatello a year ago, everyone was talking about these, doubleheader matchups at Holt Arena. And I was like, what? I don't know what that is because I got here COVID. They're playing at Iron Horse, playing at Century, whatever. And so, I think let me check who is going first for this. It's going to be Jackson Hole at Pocatello at 6 p.m. Then afterwards, I think the kick's set for like 8:30. Century at Highland, which, I think everyone expects Highland to win. I think they've won for the last, dozen or so years. But that's going to be a fun one. Like, this Century team that plays really hard against Hall of Highlands athletes, that's going to be cool. And then, this Jackson Hole team, like you were talking about, is basically has 4A numbers in Idaho. Can Pocatello, continue their hot streak and, beat them? So, yeah, that'll be a fun doubleheader to start the week off.
And tell me how we got to playing the games on Thursday, because as I'm looking at our site, IdahoSports.com, I've got them both on Friday, and I need to change that. But this was all kind of a fluid situation.
Yeah, what was it? It was like, I think they were both scheduled to play on Friday, but Iron Horse, the construction with the press box wasn't ready, and so they were going to move it to Saturday, and then to play at Holt Arena, there was already games scheduled. I know Bear Lake plays Firth. And then I think there's an Idaho Falls team that plays after that. They were thinking about moving it to Saturday. There was, some scheduling conflict with Idaho State. And so they're like, when can we get Holt Arena? All of a sudden Thursday popped up and they moved it to there. And so, probably not ideal for kids that, playing in that 8:30 game. You're going to get home at what? 11:30? I don't know if you can go to bed that quickly. You're going to have to eat dinner. You're going to bed after midnight. All of a sudden, got to wake up. If I'm Highland and Century, I'm probably expecting a lot of first period absences on that Friday, but we'll see. So, that'll be not exactly the ideal way that you want to, end up playing these games in a roundabout type of scheduling matter. But, hey, we got a Holt Arena doubleheader in week 3.
Yeah, and you talked about the doubleheader in Holt Arena on Friday as well.
Yeah.
That second game is going to feature Rigby against Skyline, two teams that, I sat there last week because we did the Rigby game on IdahoSports.com, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, why would two teams that are 20 minutes from each other go all the way down to Holt Arena to play when they could just meet somewhere closer? And as I thought about it, those are two teams that think they're going to be 5A, 4A state champions, right? And they want to get a feel for what it's like to be inside Holt Arena, knowing that they're probably going to be there in the playoffs at some point. I think that's probably why they did it. So,
yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Also, you would think that they've got a lot of fans traveling. This is a really, really big game between, teams that think they're going to be the state champions, and like, why not try and put it in a big atmosphere, go to a neutral site, try and make it as, hyped up as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about Marsh Valley, the contest with West Side. That's going to be, they're hosting West Side in Aramo. So that's going to be good. That's probably going to be the best matchup, I think, regardless. Malad, I'm interested to see coming off that big win. They're going to travel to North Fremont. North Fremont's 2-0, and they were a Final Four team in the 2A ranks last year, but I don't think they've looked that good personally out of the gate. And I think Malad's got a good chance.
No, yeah, because I think I put them in the rankings, but you're looking at their wins and they're very close. And so, you see it and you're like, oh, this might be a beatable team. And we'll see if Malad can, pull it off after, momentum from, a big shutout win.
Yeah, I think Aberdeen's going to be hosting South Fremont. That's a 3A Final Four team from a year ago. That's going to be good. Bear Lake playing Firth and Holt Arena, like we said.
Yep.
Snake River at Blackfoot. Blackfoot is 0-2, but both of their losses have come by 1 point to 5A teams. So that might be a good opportunity for the Broncos to get their first win of the year. And then the other game I'm really excited about is actually a 1A game, Jordan, and it's going to be Butte County at Rockland. Butte County is 2-0. Rockland is 2-0. They both were ranked 5th in this week's polls, respectively, for the 1A D1, 1A D2. And this could be a signature win for Rockland if they could find a way to break through.
Yeah, I was looking at Butte County, and I was like debating where to put them because it was so hard. I wasn't exactly sure on their competition, but they're just blowing teams out. Like, I don't know what their margin of victory is, but I think they've scored like over 50 points in both their wins. And so you look at that offense, I'm like, wow. This Butte County team, it looks just incredible so far, but I don't have a great gauge on who the heck they're playing.
Right. Well, we'll find out. We know Rockland's pretty good, so we're gonna find out real quick this week. Other sports that are going on, it's not just football that we talk about here. The Peg Peterson volleyball tournament took place over the weekend at Highland. Over 30 teams were there competing. You had a nice recap of that on Sunday in the paper from Saturday's action. Did anything really stand out to you there as you were getting the results of how our local volleyball teams did?
Highland, I think, because there was a couple different brackets for that Peg Peterson. And so Highland ended up in the gold bracket, which I think is the, biggest, it's for the best teams. And so Sugar Salem won that, but, Highland was really close. But the interesting thing for, Highland is like they had I think their setter, Drew Simmons, was the Max Preps Player of the Week last week or the week before, which is a national award. And so, for someone locally to get that, I thought that was just incredible. And so Highland, after losing McKenna Thane last year, who was our all-area volleyball player of the year, it looks like that they've just returned a ton of talent. They've got playmakers. And so they're going to be in the 5A picture, might be able to make the playoffs and make that jump. And so that's going to be a fun team to watch. Other than that, it was tough to tell. American Falls has had a good run. They lost a couple of games early in that Peg Peterson, bounced back. I think they made, they made the championship game and, fell in one of the silver or the bronze or one of those brackets. And so, the Beavers, after losing, Emma Barclay, who is another one, she was right in the conversation for that all area player of the year. The Beavers look good again too.
Yeah, Drew Simmons was the Max Preps and AVCA, the American Volleyball Coaches Association national player of the week. And
it's not like it's an Idaho thing. Like it's
right.
Yes thing.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, they do pool play. There was like 8 different pools, and then the winners of each pool played in the gold bracket, and then there was the silver bracket and the bronze bracket. So yeah, Highland looks really good in volleyball. Last night they played Bonneville and Hillcrest in one of those tri matches, and they won both of those. Bonneville's a really, really good volleyball team, and then went five games, but they won 3-2. So yeah, I totally agree that the Highland volleyball team is looking really strong. And then you had a nice feature earlier this week in the Idaho State Journal about the local swim teams in Pocatello as well.
No, I didn't know a whole lot about swimming because last year it was just so weird. I mean, swimming was already this, kind of niche sport in terms of high school circles. It's only been a sanctioned event for 5 years now. And so last year they did all their state championships virtually, which is insane. And so they did their district meet and state meet as the same thing. They're not even racing anyone. They're just doing time trials. And they went up to Idaho Falls. And I know a lot of the coaches around there were, not very thrilled because in swimming, if you're going to do something like a time trial, you've got to make these things even on all accounts. Well, the elevation in Idaho Falls is higher than it is in other parts of the state. And they didn't give, they didn't level that out or, adjust times or anything. So I know a lot of local coaches were very impressed with, anyone that was even getting in the top 12 of state being like, you guys were on some accounts, at a disadvantage. And so Century has a really good team this season. They return a lot of people. You look at that boys team and they had a relay that placed third, and I think the 200 and 400 freestyle, and they returned 3 of those people. And Highlands also has a pretty good team, has Aaliyah Jordan, who's made state the last 3 years in the 50 free. And then Pocatello is kind of just an up-and-coming program, like a lot of their sports that has been very beneficial. The boundaries have been very beneficial for them. They were up to 26 swimmers, I think, from like 12 last year. So yeah, swimming often isn't, talked about a whole lot here, but at least in Pocatello and those 3 schools, there's a lot more kids coming out for it than, a lot of people realize.
Yeah. Now I know in years past, there was one coach for all 3 schools. Is that still the arrangement?
No, they changed it up. It actually started last year where they split off into 3 separate teams and now have 3 separate coaches. And it actually, is getting treated like a real sport, where you've got, their own teams, which, sounds like the most basic thing on the planet, but hasn't been the case for swimming. So yeah, it's finally, being treated like most other sports in the school, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, that means they have enough athletes to have a team for each school, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, I think the number is capped at 30, and 2 of the 3 have hit it and could have gone over if that wasn't the case.
Right. The last thing I wanted to promo before we duck out of here is on IdahoSports.com Friday afternoon. For the first time, we will be broadcasting cross country live, Jordan. It'll be the Tiger Grizz Invitational from Idaho Falls. It's one of the biggest cross country meets of the year in the state of Idaho. And I bring this up because there's going to be several District 5 teams there competing. I mean, just looking at the list alphabetically, Aberdeen, Bear Lake, Century, you've got Grace, Highland is going to be there. You've got teams like Malad and Pocatello. Preston's going to be there. Showban will be there. Soda Springs, Snake River, Teton. I mean, there's just teams from all over. Eastern West Side's going to be there. Teams from all over. There's going to be like 46 teams competing. There's going to be 4 heats. There will be 2 girls varsity heats, 2 boys varsity heats, and they're splitting it up. So the first heat will be 1A, 2A, 3A runners and teams. Yeah. And then the second heat will be those bigger schools, 4A, 5A. So it's going to be a lot of fun. The first varsity heat is slated for 2:50 on Friday afternoon. Wow. And we'll go with coverage all the way till probably like 5 o'clock when the final race concludes. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know a couple runners to look out for. I believe Grace still has Cole Wilkerson, who, placed in the top 5 at state last year in 1A, and he's right up there with some of the 2A, 3A, 4A runners. And then you look at 4A, Pocatello last year was fantastic. Had Shane Gard and Brevin Vaughn, who were fantastic. all of a sudden they look almost just as good. Sonny Gunn in a race a couple weeks ago won with a 16:32. Brody Birch, who was really good in the track in the 800, also a fantastic baseball pitcher, was right there. And then Jacob Van Orden, who's one of the better 800 runners in the entire state, 16:49. So I think he's going to be in the mix to win that. And then on the girls' side, Bailey Bird, right there, almost won state last year as just a sophomore. She's coming in as a junior, running under 20. And so, yeah, a lot of good local District 5 runners.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll bear down and get ready for another big weekend. Jordan, what's coming up for you this week/weekend at the Idaho State Journal?
Yeah, going to obviously Idaho State football plays Nevada late on Saturday. So we're going to get a story from that. Hopefully got a couple features coming before then. And then we'll have our game of the week, which we've been trying to find one game every week, usually put it on Facebook Friday morning, Friday afternoon. We go and do a live game thread of all the action. So if you're not there, you can always follow along. Keep clicking to try and post updates every, 10, 15 minutes and update that. And we'll have a game story and, all our scores as quick as possible on Friday.
Yep. And I assume you're going to be at those Thursday games.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be, if we'll have time to make it in the print on Friday, but yeah, probably midnight, 1 a.m. That'll be, I'll be drinking a lot of coffee that night and getting those in.
And as we learned in the very first Prepcast we did, it's got to be room temperature coffee. You got to let it cool down, right? Here we go. He's going to.
I'm sitting here the last 30 minutes.
There you go.
I can drink it just fine now.
Perfect. So if you want to see Jordan's coffee cup, it looked like a sippy cup, to be honest. Let me look at that again. Oh yeah, no, it's just your traditional.
I don't want it to spill.
Yeah, and it's see-through too. It's kind of
it changes if it's hot. It gets a different color, but it's room temperature, so it's green right now.
Oh, that and green means go. That's how you know it's safe to drink. Okay, I like it. Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to see Jordan's coffee cup, check out the video of this Prepcast at the IdahoSports.com Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Of course, you can get the audio-only version of this podcast wherever you download your podcasts and also at our website, IdahoSports.com. All right, Jordan, we'll see you back here next week. Thanks as always.
See ya. Thank you.
All right. For Jordan Kay, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning in to the Southeast Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.